everyone, my name is Natalia. I'm with Auggie Events, and today we have Xan with us from My Baby Sleepology for a sleep workshop. So Xan, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Xan, which is short for Alexandra, and I am the founder of My Baby Sleepology and the Pediatric Sleep Academy. So, with My Baby Sleepology, we work with clients one-on-one to help them achieve their sleep goals. And then through the Pediatric Sleep Academy, we actually certify other people to start and build their very own sleep consulting businesses. So, if that's ever something you're interested in, please feel free to email me. Before we get started, if you don't do so already, you can follow us on Instagram. We post a ton of tips and tricks, advice. We do Q&As, all that good stuff. So you can follow us there at My Baby Sleepology. So I have three girls ranging from 5 years old to almost 10 years old. And I started my sleep consulting journey when my oldest daughter was born, because I'm sure, like so many of you, you have your first baby and you're knocked on your butt with sleep deprivation. That was me. And that is when I learned everything. I sleep trained her when she was 4 months old. It was so insanely life changing that I was like, oh my gosh, I can replicate this. I need to help change other people's lives. Like my life was just changed. So I got certified literally within a few days, and it's been history ever since. I now have a team of 10 moms across the United States, but we work with clients worldwide. We've actually worked with over 12,000 families over the last 9.5 years. We all truly, truly love what we do. And one thing we always tell people is that we're known for coming up with plans that feel comfortable for our clients. So whether you have a high, medium, or low cry tolerance, I am confident we can help you. One thing that I'm going to talk about, so I'm going to give about a 20 to 30 minute presentation, and then there will be time for Q&A at the end. The presentation is going to be pretty basic, but it will have actionable steps. But I just want you all to have a good feel for like the basic sleep foundations to get your children sleeping super, super well. But the two things that I always lean on is timing and consistency. So, our biggest differentiator from so many other programs out there is that we really leverage the science behind sleep and a child's biorhythm. So, what does that mean? When babies hit the 4 month sleep regression, which actually happens around the 16-week mark, which is 3.5 months, their internal clock forms, which is guided by melatonin and cortisol. So it's really, really, really important that we take advantage of that and shift away from the mindset of awake windows, which is fine. We do want to go by that up until that 16-week mark because their sleep is very erratic. They don't have an internal clock, and that's how we know we're keeping them rested. At the 16-week mark, we want to leverage those sleepy hormones and restorative windows throughout the day because that will help your child not only fall asleep faster, but sleep more soundly and get more restorative sleep going into the night. So you'll learn a bit about that, and feel free to ask me any questions at the end. Okay, so what could be going on? Your child is not sleeping through the night, they're taking short naps. So, the number one cause of sleep issues is that your child is overtired. So, when a child gets overtired, what chemically happens is cortisol is secreted, which is a stress hormone and a stimulant, and again, is the number one cause for issues at night. So, if you think your child might be overtired, make bedtime earlier by anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes and see if that helps. If it doesn't, make it a little bit earlier and see if that helps. The next thing is that your child just simply does not know how to self soothe. That is a learned skill. Yes, there are unicorn babies out there who just sleep well, which is rare, but most babies do need to be taught how to sleep. So, how to connect those sleep cycles. So, at night, a sleep cycle is anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. So, if your baby is waking up, say, every 3 hours, that makes sense. That is a sleep cycle. They are going to expect whatever assistance they got at the beginning of the night as they are shifting through those sleep cycles. So, to really set your baby up for success for the middle of the night, we really want to place them down fully awake, not drowsy, fully awake at the beginning of the night. So it's not startling when they do inevitably wake up in the middle of the night. So the waking up throughout the night is not the issue. The issue is that they just simply don't know how to get themselves back to sleep. So, in teaching that independent sleep and helping to set them up for success for self soothing, we want to nail timing and stay consistent. So, making sure they're going down at the optimal time and age appropriate schedule for their naps, and that we're adjusting bedtime appropriately based on how they slept that day specifically. So, if you are in the trenches, you're just starting sleep training, and your baby is just not napping well, totally normal. It takes a little bit of time for naps to catch on. Make bedtime earlier. And then being consistent with your chosen sleep training method, which we'll get into that in a little bit, but there are several methods to choose from based on your comfort level. And it's important that you choose one that feels comfortable for you, that will work for your baby. And I will just quickly say that sleep training does not mean that you have to use the cry it out method. There are several methods to choose from. The next thing is that your baby possibly has some form of discomfort. The two main things would be teething and reflux. Teething is most painful the 2 to 3 days leading up to the tooth popping through. That would be the case if you could see swollen gums or little white nubs in their mouth. If you don't see that, it's likely not happening. But we do hear from people all the time, my baby's been teething for a month or 2 months, and I'm like, no, nope, that's not the cause of what is happening at night. That would, like, it only impacts their sleep for, again, 2 to 3 nights at a maximum. So if that's happening, if that's what you think the cause is, it's probably something else going on. And then the other thing would be reflux. So we've worked with a ton of babies who have reflux. One key factor that you can do is holding your baby up for a long enough period of time before placing them down. You could, for instance, do half of the feeding before a bath, and then they're sitting up like at a 45-degree angle in the bath, and you're allowing that to settle in their tummy. And then you do the rest of the bottle or nursing after the bath and hold them up for anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes to help that to settle. But again, even if your baby has reflux, we can help you and just provide even more tips. And again, the timing, like, we've worked with so many people who thought reflux was the underlying issue when really it was just their schedule. Okay, so let's go over some of the basics. The first is going to be sleep environment, because that is something that is so easy, and little tweaks can really help to optimize how well they sleep. So the first thing is making sure their room is as dark as possible. The darkness helps to stimulate the natural production of melatonin, which is a sleepy hormone. So we hear all the time, oh, but I don't want my baby or my child to be reliant on darkness because we like to travel or we just want them to be flexible. That is fine. Control what you can when you can. The darkness is not a sleep crutch. It's more of a sleep aid. It helps to stimulate that hormone of melatonin. So it just helps when you have it. They will not be reliant on it. My family loves to travel. We have never had a problem due to it not being 100% pitch black. And a lot of the time when we travel, it is not pitch black. But when you do travel, you could bring like black trash bags. There are portable, like the Grow Anywhere blinds that can suction cup to the window. There are things that you can do to help that, but it's not like a 100% requirement. Just control it when you can. You'll see here for toddlers, because I'm sure some of you on this call have toddlers, so we'll cover them as well. So if your toddler is requesting a night light, a red light is preferred, because red lights are not a stimulant to the brain, whereas white and blue lights are. Don't add a night light unless your child is requesting them. Toddlers are not capable of being afraid of the dark until the earliest being 2 years old, which is when their imaginations start to form. So your 4-month-old, 9-month-old, 12-month-old is not afraid of the dark, I promise. The next easy thing you could do is a sound machine. Again, if you're the person who's like, well, I don't want them to be reliant on it, they won't be reliant on it. It is proven to help lengthen sleep, consolidate sleep. If you live in the city or somewhere that's noisy, it can help drown out that noise. Even having it just low and having that signal to their brain that it's sleep time is really, really helpful. And it's actually so helpful when traveling because you can bring one of those small portable sound machines that helps to replicate that home-like environment when you're not home. For toddlers, make sure all furniture is bolted down. So if you have a crib jumper, if you have a child in a toddler bed, make sure all furniture is bolted down. At 12 months and older, they can have like a lovey or a tiny little stuffed animal. For toddlers, I do highly recommend what we call a little sleeping buddy. That can help to give them that attachment at bedtime in the middle of the night and something that just feels familiar. Again, easily portable. You can bring it on vacation with you. And things you can do for your toddler is hype the sleeping buddy up, encourage them to make great big sleeps with the sleeping buddy. One thing I tell clients of toddlers is we want to make it fun for toddlers. So I'm sure you've all heard of the concept elf on the shelf. You can do something like that with the stuffies. So if you have a toddler who's like really protesting naps or bedtime, you can kick off that routine like playing silly, like you can't see the stuffed animal, but it's in plain sight hiding behind a book, or you walk in and the stuffy is in your child's sleep sack, or it's tucked into the crib or the bed under the blankets and on the pillow, and you what where's Lovey? Where's Stuffy? And they're cracking up because they're like, you don't see it? Look what it's doing. So there are little things that you can do that will go a long way with your toddler as far as the sleep environment is concerned and sleep associations. And you can also rotate that sleeping buddy. So like if you don't want your child being too attached to one thing, every few weeks or a month, just throw a different one in there. Pull it out, throw a different one in there. Okay, the basic sleep foundation. So an age-appropriate bedtime is so insanely important. From 0 to 4 months, the bedtime range is quite large. It would be anywhere between 7 and 11 p.m. As the baby is getting older, we want bedtime to become earlier. Sounds crazy, but that's what we want to do because their internal clock is forming and we don't want to get them getting overtired and they're capable of more sleep at night. Like we want to balance their day sleep and their night sleep with most of that sleep occurring at night because night sleep is the most restorative sleep any human can get. From 4 months to 5 years, bedtime would be somewhere between 5:30 and 7:30, 8 o'clock. Obviously, 3, 4, 5-year-old, the earliest we would probably want bedtime to be is 6:30, depending on their age and their sleep needs. But an age-appropriate bedtime is so important. Routines. Routines are important. Babies can understand the sequence of events starting as early as 12 weeks old. So at 12 weeks, for those of you who have a newborn, start with a simple routine so that they start to understand, okay, I need to make a big sleep now. So at 12 weeks is when you can start planting those seeds of that sleep foundation. So routines, you can practice self-soothing at that point. I say like 3 to 5 minutes from 12 to 16 weeks. And then at 16 weeks is when you can do formal sleep training because that's when their internal clock has formed, their sleep cycles have matured, their 3 naps have developed, and there's just so much more you can control. And they're developmentally ready to handle the whatever method you choose. So at bedtime, we want the routine to be 15 to 20 minutes at a maximum, especially for toddlers, because those of you with toddlers know that the longer that routine is, the longer it becomes. So if you starting to do a 30-minute routine, then it's 40 minutes, 50 minutes. I have people calling me who are like, my bedtime routine is an hour and a half. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We need to shave that down and have it be very clear so that they know the exact expectations of after the, say, 2 books, it's night time, because otherwise it becomes way too gray for them and they get so creative and they see what else they can slip in there. So 15 to 20 minutes for bedtime. Nap routine, 5 to 10 minutes. It can be an abbreviated version of the bedtime routine. No electronics within 45 to 60 minutes of bedtime, so avoiding the iPad, TV. The reason is because those electronics truly stimulate their brain, and it makes it very difficult for them to settle in and fall asleep. I experienced this with my oldest daughter when she was 3 years old. You know, toddlers are crazy, they're running around, and sometimes all you want to do is sit on the couch and snuggle with them. And for us, that was like 10 minutes of Elmo within like 45 minutes of bedtime. When I tell you it was taking her 45 to 60 minutes of her doing like all of these theatrics in the crib, and we were like, what the heck is going on? I was like, okay, we need to remove Elmo. As like enjoyable as it is, we got to cut Elmo out. We did. She was falling asleep within 10 to 15 minutes after we did that. So if you want to do that, just scoot it up. Do it earlier in the evening. Don't have it be within 45 to 60 minutes if it is taking your child a long time to fall asleep. You just want to be able to check the box that that is not a contributing factor. One thing we already touched on is independent sleep. So a lot of people will say, I'm doing drowsy but awake. Nope, we don't want drowsy. We want fully awake. Because if a baby is going down drowsy, they're actually already entering that lightest stage of sleep. And we want them to know 100% how they are getting themselves to sleep at the beginning of the night so that they know how to get themselves back to sleep in the middle of the night. We get this question all the time. What is the earliest you should put your child in a toddler bed? The earliest age is really 3 years old. Yes, there are circumstances where it has to be sooner if they're jumping out of the crib and it is unsafe. But the reason why I say 3 years old is because that is when impulse control starts to form for toddlers. It's a lot stronger between 3.5 and 4 years old, which is the true ideal recommended age. So if you are welcoming another baby, save your sanity, get another crib. Get another crib. Use a pack and play. For the first 4 months, they could be in a bassinet. But keep that crib for as long as you possibly can. For all of my girls, we did it a month shy of their 4th birthday, and it was the easiest thing in the world. What happens a lot of the time when you transition to a bed too early is sometimes they do fine for the first like week or two or even month, and then all of a sudden they realize their newfound freedom, they start dipping their toes out, and then next thing you know, you have a little jack in the box. So I would really try to keep them in a crib for as long as possible. Now, I should also say that if there is anything that you guys are doing that's different from what I said and it is working for you, that is totally fine. Zero judgment here whatsoever. This is just for people who are looking for tips for a situation that is not currently working for them. Now, let's go through the different sleep training methods. The first method is called extinction, otherwise known as cry it out. And that means that from the time you place your baby down, you are not going, or child, you are not going in there again until the earliest being 6:30 a.m. Unless, of course, your baby needed a middle of the night feeding, which we'll talk about next. But there are situations where babies do need a middle of the night feeding, or it makes the parents feel more comfortable. That is fine. If you were doing extinction, but your baby had a middle of the night feeding or two, you would apply extinction for all wakings outside of the designated feeding, which we would want to be the first wake up after midnight. The next method is called Ferber. There's the full Ferber, where if you Google Ferber chart, you'll see that, or you could simplify it and just do like 5-7-9, then 7-9-11. Now, what does that mean? Choose an interval that you feel comfortable with. There should be 3 intervals each night, but you can modify it. You could just do 2 intervals if you wanted to, or just 1. You only start the timer from the point your child's cry becomes escalated. If it is not escalated, if they are fussing, whining, chatting, you do nothing. That is them self-soothing, and we want to give them the space to be able to do that. So let's say you were starting at 5 minutes. Set the timer for 5 minutes. You go in for 1 to 2 minutes. You can shush them, stroke their face, pat them, whatever you want to do, just no picking up. After the 1 to 2 minutes, you leave. Then you increase to the second interval. You go in for 1 to 2 minutes, you leave, and then you go in at the third interval until your child falls asleep. The next method is called the chair method. This one is good for toddlers who really want your presence or parents who want to be in the room with their baby as they are learning how to self-soothe. So you would place your child down and then sit in a chair, ideally a chair that doesn't belong in the room. So a desk chair, dining room chair, and you can shush them from where you're sitting. And each night you would move the chair a little bit further away until you're outside of the room. Come night like 7 or 8. The next method is called pick up, put down. So this is for families who have a very low cry tolerance. So once your baby starts crying, you go in right away. You don't have to set a timer. You go in right away, console them. If that's not working after 3 to 4 minutes, you can pick them up, hold them, place them down, rinse and repeat. Now, also for toddlers, there's a method called silent return, where if they were to leave their room, you bring them back and just say, it's night time, it's time to sleep, and just keep bringing them back, bringing them back, bringing them back, so that the leaving the room loses its luster. They realize, I'm getting nothing out of this, I might as well just stay in my room. And there's also a method for toddlers where you could set timers and say, listen, I'm just gonna leave the room for 2 minutes, and if you stay quiet in your bed, I'll come back in 2 minutes and I'll give you a little back tickle. You go in there. Then you say, okay, now I'm going to set the timer for 3 minutes or 4 minutes. Keep increasing it so you can build on their ability to hang out nicely and like build on their confidence to be able to do that. So that's a really good method for an anxious toddler. Okay, so the final thing to discuss is two of the most prominent sleep issues, which is night wakings and early rising. So your child can start sleeping through the night as early as, it says 4 months old, but really 3.5 months old, 16 weeks. So that is when we can create more structure around a child's sleep and get them sleeping really well through the night, whether or not they have a feeding or two. So we would consider sleeping through the night in that case, outside of that night feeding. So if you are struggling, a lot of other consultants will say you can start at 6 months. No, you can actually start at 3.5 months from their estimated due date. The number one trigger, like we discussed, is that bedtime is too late. So if you leave with nothing else, just make bedtime earlier if they're waking up frequently throughout the night. We talked about cortisol. So when your child, whether it is a baby or a toddler, if they start secreting that cortisol, bedtime was too late, they're overtired, that puts them into fight or flight. So it causes their bodies, and as adults, I am sure you have all experienced this, or you'll be more cognizant of it now, where like you are so tired, you didn't sleep well the night before, you're jumping in your bed at 8, 9 p.m. and you're like, I am going to sleep early tonight. And at 11 p.m., your body is like literally twitching. That's cortisol pumping through you, and it's causing you to fight sleep. That is what happens with babies and toddlers. They just become so much more irritable. So if your toddler or your baby is getting a second wind, or if they are appearing wired, they are most likely overtired. As we discussed, night feeds are fine if they nutritionally need it or if it makes you feel more comfortable. We would want that to be the first wake up after midnight, because the sleep that a baby or child, any human, gets before midnight is the most restorative sleep they can get. And if they're being fed before midnight, that causes their digestion to churn and it causes them to be pushed into a lighter stage of sleep. Now, if you're dealing with any early rising, it is so important that we give them the space to learn how to get back to sleep in the early morning. So if they're waking up at 5, 5:30, 6, and you are taking them out of their bed or their crib and starting their day, and they are seeing either the lights from screens or the sun is rising, that is literally programming their internal clock to think that that is their morning wake up time. So that's one reason scientifically. And the second thing is that positive reinforcement where, okay, I wake up in the early morning, I get pulled into my parents' bed, or I get the TV, or I start my day, I get milk or breakfast, whatever that might be. So holding firm with 6:30 a.m. as the earliest they are taken out is very, very important in getting their nights to lengthen. An age-appropriate morning wake-up time is between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. Now, if you have a toddler who they're just a 6:15 a.m. riser, and you know that, you can teach the behavior of them hanging out quietly until at least 6:30 a.m. So one thing I would recommend is like an okay to wake clock, either a Hatch, or if you go on Amazon, you can search toddler wake up clock, okay to wake clock. There are a bunch of different options. You can choose one that you feel would resonate with your child, but it can totally be right sized. We have worked with so many early risers and we are able to help. One thing that we do with our clients, so one of the programs that we have where we support them daily is we would have a 1 hour kickoff call to chat through absolutely everything that's going on, your goals, your pain points. We would chat through sleep environment, routines, feeding as it relates to sleep, the night wakings, the different methods, early rising, naps, and come up with a super holistic plan. And then you would get a digital log where you are logging your child's sleep every single night and every single day, and it is shared with your consultant. So, for instance, you would say, place them down at this time. They fell asleep at this time, woke up at this time, and this is what they were doing. Fell asleep at this time. So, we would see all that data. We would track it, benchmark it, provide you insights every single day, and make those tweaks for you. So, we would tell you the exact timing of naps and bedtime to help optimize their ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. And by the end of the program, you will have learned so much about what goes into getting your baby or your toddler to sleep well for both the short term, but also the long term. So, knowing how to get through regressions, teething, sickness, traveling, so that you feel like a confident parent that can conquer basically anything. So, what questions do you all have? We have about 20 minutes for Q&A. I know it was a lot of information.
Xan, can I ask you my question?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had a call with Xan a couple days ago, and she's amazing. I highly recommend, like one-on-one consults or signing up to her clinics. And we had a call the other day, and she is a stubborn human being. I tried putting my daughter is 22 months old for everyone else. She was the most perfect sleeper up until today. I've been the luckiest because of her, and Xan, but now she's stubborn. I tried putting the pillow. We did the sleep wiggle. That
Yep.
girl just stays up, hanging by the crib, sometimes yells her name calmly, sometimes just sits there for 5 minutes, then starts whining. I mean, she was good for 2 days, and it's been, I think, 2 weeks since her call, and she's just stubborn. I mean, I didn't want to do the extinction,
Mm-hmm.
but I did it today at her nap, 2.5 hours nonstop. That girl was standing. Tonight I tried the toy. Actually asked her yesterday as well. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, "Do you want this?" And I'm like, "Oh, where's this?" Or "Where's your doll?" "Nope." "Do you want it?" "Nope." Uh-uh. The answer I get is uh-uh. So
Right.
I even spoke to my old nanny. I feel that she will be up for 4.5 hours crying tonight.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
What has she been doing since we spoke the other
She
week?
was perfect for 2 days, and
Okay.
then again, it just became a problem, and so either I or my nanny would go into sleep in the bed next to her, which is a bed, which is where the nanny has been sleeping her whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she goes in like after she falls asleep around 9:30, and hasn't been a problem. But now we pretend to go to bed with her.
Yeah.
Well, up until like 2 days ago, yesterday actually,
Yeah.
and then she falls asleep, and then we leave after 5-10 minutes. But I don't want to get her like this forever. Yes, she
Yeah.
is going through the 2-year regression, and I keep telling everyone my child is broken.
No, she's not broken. I promise. I promise they're never broken. I know it can feel that way. It can feel so intense when you're in it. But one thing I will say, which again is just a basic foundation that we need to think about, is whatever's happening at the beginning of the night, she's going to expect that in the middle of the night. And she's at an age now where she is going to become that much more driven to elicit the response from you that she wants.
Mhm.
And if she's getting it, she's going to keep doing it. So it's kind of like the gambling effect that I say for toddlers.
Yeah.
Like if you lose, you're gambling, you lose 9 times, but you win the 10th. You're going to keep gambling because there is a chance that it might work for you again. So I think that you guys just need to be so consistent in your response and what you feel comfortable with. Yes, extinction is a method. And for everyone on this call, it is safe and it is effective. I did an Instagram live with the head of pediatric sleep and neurology at Duke University. His Instagram is that sleep doc. He's incredible. I highly recommend following him. And he says that too. He's like, sleep training, cry it out. It is safe and effective. You just need to go with the method that feels comfortable for you. So, zero judgment whatsoever if that's you allowing your child to cry it out for a few nights. I do think because she has such a solid sleep foundation, it's not going to take that long. But right
Okay.
now, with like the waffling, the back and forth of like, okay, we're just going to stay in the room now because that will just like get her
Yeah.
to sleep, that she's going to keep trying for that because when she wakes up in the middle of the night, like we all naturally do, she's looking for what got her to sleep in the first place.
Got it. So let her cry it. I mean, I'm not going in today. I'm
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as
Mom
you
has a,
earlier bedtime if you need to.
okay.
I
Got it.
know, I
Thank
know
you.
it does not feel good. I had to do it when my middle daughter was like almost 3, and it was a horrible first night. But then the second night, she was like, "Night night, I got this," and I was like, "Thank the
Oh,
Lord."
okay. How many hours did she cry?
An hour 45.
Okay, see, we're at like 3, so like good. Okay, we'll see.
Yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Good luck.
Thanks.
And we have a couple of questions popping up in the chat. Would you like me to read them out?
Oh yes, let's do it.
All right, so the first one is from Patricia or Patricia. It says, my son is 9.5 months old and he has been dropping the first nap, sometimes in daycare. I always heard about dropping the third nap. Is this okay? He used to nap 30 minutes in the morning, about 60 to 90 minutes around lunchtime, and a short 30-minute nap around 4 to 4:30 p.m. He wakes up around 7 a.m. and bedtime is 7:30 p.m.
Okay, so dropping the first nap, meaning like that morning nap, if that's what's happening, so babies drop down to 2 naps between 7 and 9 months. I'd say the latest is 10 months. It's rare that it happens after 9 months, but it does happen. But we definitely want babies on at least 2 naps until the earliest being 14 months. Now, because your baby is in daycare, many daycares drop around 12 months. Don't panic. Keep the 2 naps on the weekend until he is protesting them. There is the 8 month sleep regression that could be happening. So I would say continue offering that nap indefinitely. It will come back. But if the nap is shorter, just make bedtime earlier to compensate for that. 7 a.m. wake up is great. But yes, he should still be taking that first nap if I read that correctly.
Okay, we have another question from Mackenzie. Says, my baby is 8 weeks old today. When do you recommend we start incorporating these practices? He is currently sleeping 7-hour stretches, 7:15 to 2 to 2:30 a.m., and then 3 to 5:30 a.m. with a 7 a.m. wake up time. However, naps are a challenge and he only wants to contact nap.
Okay, so that is awesome. What I would say is if you start to see the night get shorter, where like your baby's waking up at 5 or 6 and can't get back to sleep, it would be age appropriate to have bedtime be starting a little bit later. So you would just throw an extra nap in the day to get him to say bedtime that's 8 p.m. or later. Once they're 12 weeks, bedtime is between 7 and 8 p.m. typically, but it sounds like that is currently working for you. So I'd keep rolling with it. For the naps, I would say contact naps are totally fine if you are okay with that. I did contact naps because I personally enjoyed them until my girls were like literally until I was sleep training them. But you should also be able to swaddle your baby and then be able to place him down. If you're not, there are steps that you can take to help him to be able to do that. So swaddle him, get him to sleep, Slowly put him down onto the flat surface. Keep the pressure of your hand on his chest. You can even like do a slight little jiggle for him to help keep him asleep on the flat surface. But I would say for all of these things, you can start at 16 weeks, but you can start practicing independent sleep as early as 12 weeks. So that's where you start placing him down a little bit more awake, as the weeks are going on, so that by, say, 15 weeks, you're placing him down almost fully awake.
We also had someone raise their hand. Kin, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Kin Cooper?
Yes, ma'am. Hi, Zan. I wanted to ask a question. My son is 13 months and I'm exhausted, so I'm trying to think of the best way to address the question. So if my husband lays him down around 8 o'clock, he typically will just lay down and go to sleep, but he does wake up at least 3 times. And
Okay.
I'm noticing at the 5 a.m., like it's between 4 and 5, where he will not. It's like he's wide awake. Like he struggles to fall back asleep, and I can tell he's really trying.
Yep.
But I do nurse him before that because he only eats solids once a day.
Okay. And this is your baby's, did I hear 13 months?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I'm just trying to see. Originally, his bedtime was 7 and 7:30, and then it was 7:45, and then we did 8 because he laid down easier at 8 o'clock. But from what you're saying, it seems like maybe his cortisol is high.
Yeah. You said how are the naps? What's the state of naps?
Yeah. So nap, he only naps one time. I tried to, sorry, please, baby. I tried to get him to, hold on. He thinks I'm FaceTiming.
He's like, let me in.
I tried to keep the afternoon nap, but he refused for weeks at a time. So now he does one nap.
Okay, so that may have been the 12-month sleep regression impacting things, which usually happens between 11 and 13 months. It's most greatly tied to the developmental milestone of walking.
Yes.
Could be what happened. He could be overtired. I would recommend making time a little bit earlier, holding steady with your method. If he nutritionally does not need a feeding in the middle of the night, which I'm guessing he doesn't, then you would want to be consistent through that. I'm also going to drop into the chat a link for everyone on here. If you wanted to, you can schedule a 15-minute intro call with our team to chat through things and we can provide insights. This is just in case we don't get to all of your questions or if you're interested potentially in some one-on-one help. I'm going to drop that in here for you. But yes, I would say making sure he's not getting overtired and being consistent until at least 6:30 a.m.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Zan, we do have a good amount of more questions that have popped up in the chat, so I'll just go ahead and keep reading them out to you. Next up, we have Kelsey, who says, how can we work around bad daycare sleep? My 13-month-old has terrible daycare naps. She's been in daycare since 4 months old and has never slept well. Now that she's down to one nap and it's short, she's having really hard/fussy evenings. The past week or so, she's also been waking overnight and won't go back unless she gets milk, which I know she doesn't need.
Yep. Very, very, very common. You can do the 2 naps on the weekends if you think that she needs it, which it sounds like she might. What I would say is control what you can. If you can do an earlier bedtime a few days a week, even if it's 3 of the 5 weekdays, try doing that. It sounds like your baby is most likely a little overtired and might just need a little bit of a reset to get sleep back on track.
Awesome. Next up, we have Marissa, who says, my daughter is almost 2 years old and has always been a pretty decent sleeper post-sleep training. She used to sleep for 2.5 to 3 hours, but now her naps are capped at 1.5 hours. What can we do to lengthen again? She wakes up around 6:30 to 7 a.m. and naps at 12:30 p.m. and goes to bed around 7 p.m. I need a longer nap for myself.
I hear you. So around 2 years old, they go through a 2-year sleep regression, and a lot of people think that their child's sleep needs are drastically shifting, but that is not the case. It's just a temporary drastic shift. Usually it lasts anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks with the average, sorry, 2 to 6 weeks with the average being about 4 weeks. But I would say give your child a 3 hour nap is probably too long at 2 years old. Usually at 2 years old, I say cap it at 2.5 hours. What I would do is I would just give your child at least 2 hours in the crib, because you can teach at this age the behavior of waking up and hanging out for an additional 30 minutes, which is also really good restorative time for your child. So that's something I always tell parents. I'm like, if your child wakes up and is hanging out nicely, don't feel like you need to rush in there. That time is restorative and helps to keep them rested going into the next nap or bedtime. But what I would say is just give them at least 2 hours in the crib, and you will be able to train that behavior of waking up and hanging out nicely. And if she needs more sleep, she will start falling back to sleep once the behavior of waking up and protesting changes.
All right, I just want to give you a time check. It's 12:42. I know you have a hard stop at 12:50, but we do have some more questions. So Sania or Sanaya, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, says, in sleep training through the Ferber method, do we follow the training only at night or during daytime as well? And then followed up with, and what would be the best time to start the training, for example, traveling plans consideration?
Yep, great question. So yes, you will want to apply the method at night, and for naps, I always start at night. And then with naps the next day, because at night they have the most amount of sleep pressure, so they can like latch on to that new response faster. And then as far as starting sleep training, I always tell people, I'm like, it totally depends how eager you are to begin. If you are traveling in 2 weeks from now and you could start, say, tonight, you've got a little bit of a good runway. I say the first 2 weeks are the most important. The first 4 weeks, like after 4 weeks, is when those habits will really be ingrained. So if you are just driving and you'll be able to control naps and bedtime and be able to be consistent while you're traveling, it's fine. So many of our clients are traveling through sleep training. We're able to support them through that. So I would just say it depends how eager you are to start and where you are traveling to. If you are going to a tropical destination and you don't want to be stressed out about this, I wouldn't worry about it. I would wait when you get back.
Good to know.
Mhm.
Next up, Maria says, my baby is 20 months old and she's really favoring sleep support at night, where I am in the room with her until she falls asleep. She never needed this before. I've done cry it out in the past, so I'm tempted to do it again, but my husband is not a fan. I've done more of the pick up but put down, but she needs me in the room to fall asleep and she wakes up early now crying for me. What do you think could be helpful? She was so good at self-soothing before.
Okay, so you do have a good sleeper, which is important to remember. You just need to get her back there. I think that the picking up and putting down at this age is probably way overstimulating for her, and it's more of a tease at this age. So after 18 months old, a lot of sleep issues become more behavioral, because with the 18-month regression, what that is attributed to is a ton of cognitive development. So basically, your child is a heck of a lot smarter than they were 6 months ago. So if you are picking them up, they're like, oh, well, I'm going to keep doing this because I know I'm going to get some snuggles and all of the things. And then it's ultimately aggravating because you're picking them up and then you're putting them down. And they're like, no, 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 get back over here, pick me back up. So what I would say is she probably needs a little bit more of a direct approach. Um, your husband is not a fan. Maybe you could say, give me a few nights, give me 3 nights, and then we can reassess if needed. But like start with baby steps, and I would say grow from there. But yes, cry it out, Ferber are both like two really good methods at this age.
We have Allison asking, when should you stop contact naps?
So that is 100% personal preference. I stopped contact naps at like 15, 16 weeks when I sleep trained my babies. I am a sleep consultant. I do this for a living, and I always want to like remove any sort of stress or pressure on parents, because so much out there is like contact naps are the devil. They do whatever feels good for you, gets your baby more sleep. There are no habits that can't quickly be changed at the 16-week mark. Yes, practicing at the 12-week mark can be so helpful. And I did do that. The first nap of the day is typically the easiest one to practice with because it's a continuation of night sleep. So they have the most sleep pressure and highest levels of melatonin. So I would practice with that nap at like 12 weeks old, but keyword practice. Practice like, and from 12 to 16 weeks, maybe you're practicing with 2 naps a day. But I would say if you're wanting to promote and practice independent sleep, then at 16 weeks, it's a really, really, really good time to do that if you are wanting to sleep train.
Cool. We have Iman who's asking, when your baby drops their third nap, ideally, how long should they nap from when to when?
So totally depends the baby and their sleep needs and their sleep history. When they drop their third nap, I would say ideally naps 1 and 2 would be about an hour and a half. We would want to cap total day sleep at 3.5 hours. When they're on 3 naps, we would want to cap the total day sleep at 4.5 hours.
Okay, and then a follow-up question from Iman says, if you shift bedtime to later by half an hour for 6 to 8-month-old, do naps start and end times also shift out by half an hour?
Yeah, so basically, if you want a later bedtime, you would likely have to shift the naps out a little bit later. What I typically recommend for people who enroll in programs with us is let's start off with a baseline that is like at a biological advantage for your child. And if you want a later bedtime, let's start here. And once they're doing well, we'll slowly shift everything a little bit later.
Amazing. We do have just one more question, which I think is perfect for timing. Cecily says, my baby is 13 months. He is currently sleeping in his crib and would like to skip toddler bed and go straight into floor bed in his own room. Any thoughts about that? I'd like to teach him self-control and independence.
So, I am personally not a fan of floor beds like that. Um, he's in his crib. So, I don't know if you're saying you're wanting to do that now or later, but either way, I would say that the longer you hold out, the longer you keep them in the crib, the easier it is because of the fact that developmentally, cognitively, they lack that impulse control until 3 years old. Now, if that was just part of, what you wanted to do as a parent, where you're bolting all the furniture down, there's nothing unsafe in there, and you're basically making their room a crib, then by all means, that is fine. But I will say that some children can get overwhelmed by the options and the freedom, and it causes them to sort of like feel a little bit more out of control. So I think it's totally based on your child as well.
Amazing. Well, I believe there's all the questions, and we're right at the time that you
Mhm.
have to head out, Dan. So
Yes,
thank
thank
you
you so
so
much.
much. I'm sure everyone else has learned a lot. I've learned a lot today. Thank you all for being here.
Yes, of course. And if anyone needs one-on-one help, you can schedule a 15-minute intro call. I put the link in the chat. You can check out our website, follow us on Instagram. But I would say most of our clients do see progress within 2 to 4 nights. So if you are struggling, we can help you guys.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.